Hello, my name is Noelia Silva. I am the Cooperative Extension Dairy Health Specialist. I want to also introduce you Daniela Bruno. She is the Cooperative Extension Advisor located in Fresno, Kings, and Madera counties. And Dr. Emanuel Okello, that is the Cooperative Extension Specialist in Antimicrobial Stewardship. The three of us together work on a project, the Community of Practice project. And here we are going to present the findings of Site 2, Case 3. It was done, the project in a dairy cattle operation, and our goal was to see a reduction in somatic cell count. So the site that we enrolled was a herd with 4,000 lactating Holstein cows that they were housing a free stall facility bedded with dry manure. It was located in the Central Valley. The facility had a rotary milking parlor with 72 stalls, and cows were milked twice a day. The milkers were in shifts of 12 hours. And in this facility, there was a hospital pen independently to the rotary milking parlor, where cows with mastitis and other diseases were treated. When we started this community of practice, we met with the leadership of the farm, with the owner and the manager, and we established goals for the community of practice. First of all, we explained them the principles of the community of practice, and then they shared what they were the key issues that they had that they would like to improve. And the main issue that raised was the milk quality and somatic cell count. So then the intervention was decided at the milking parlor. And we decided to form the community of practice with the milkers. And to start the process, we scheduled meetings with both shifts of milkers. So as there were two shifts of 12 hours, we chose a time where one of the shifts was coming in and the other shift was exiting. And we interviewed with both shifts on the same day, but at different times. And we have a meeting with the shift manager and the 5 milkers in both meetings. And we explained the process, where we were, the objectives, and how it was going to look like be part of the community of practice. One of the shifts decided to enroll and be part of the community of practice project, and the other shift decided not to be. Every month, the shift changes schedule, so we have 1 month a shift doing the day milking and another shift doing the night, and they will switch every month. So we identified several needs during the community of practices meeting. We found that the communication between the milkers and the hospital manager could be improved. We also found that the communication between the milkers and the herd manager needed to improve. Communication among milkers and between milkers and the shift manager. And then there were also things that happened during the community of practice that deserve attention, like teeth cleaning strategies, and also reducing agitation among heifers and cows. So the communication between milkers and the hospital manager. So the background is that the milkers felt that their work detecting mastitis was not useful. So one of the steps of milking cows is stripping milk, so you can detect abnormal milk and identify those cows for mastitis. And those cows identified that they had mastitis or abnormal milk, they should go to a different place where they're treated. The milkers were doing that. They were detecting cows with mastitis, but they saw those cows coming back without being treated. And so they didn't understand why they had to do this job of very demanding in the risk of stripping cows. And at the end, they did not see any point of doing that. We hypothesized that the communication between the milkers and the hospital manager can be improved, so they understand both ends, what the milkers were thinking and why the hospital manager was sending back those cows to the general herd. So our intervention was to meet first with the hospital manager and understand his point of view. And he explained that the normal milk that the milkers were detecting, really, it was not mastitis in many cases, but the dry-off teeth and sealer residue that was still there when the cows were being milked. And here we have a picture. So this dry-off teeth and sealer is a kind of like a paste that is applied at dry-off to close physically with a sealant the teeth. if it's properly applied, it should just be removed in the first milkings, but it shows in milk like a normal milk. So this is an issue for milkers that are not trained about this, that they can confuse abnormal milk from this dry of teeth sealing with mastitis. Interestingly, the hospital manager said that he had scheduled a meeting with the milkers several months before our meeting and explained to the milkers quickly this issue, because he was tired of getting cows sent to the hospital that really didn't need to be treated. So we perceive a frustration on both ends, the hospital manager and the milkers. But we didn't feel that the message that the hospital manager was trying to convey to the milkers was really understood. So there was still a miscommunication, despite that it seems that there was a meeting between both groups several months before our community of practice. So we kept talking to the hospital manager and the her manager, because we wanted to arrange a meeting between the hospital manager and the milkers and make sure that the communication between these groups was existing and alive. And the hospital manager never denied his participation in this meeting. He was willing, or he never said no to the meeting, but the meeting never happened. One of the things also that happened is that during the study, the hospital manager left his work and changed positions. And he also mentioned that he was not interested in mingling with the milkers, so he didn't like to talk to them. And I think that's part of the reason, because he did just a quick meeting to explain the issue that he had, but he did not meet with them again or try to make sure that they really understood the message. The outcome, as I mentioned before, this need was not addressed effectively. The cows identified as mastitic by the milkers continued to be returned to the rotary parlor for milking on the same day, increased the milkers' frustration. The communication between the milkers and the hospital manager remained a challenge through the community of practice, and there was a obvious frustration between the two groups. So other outcomes that happen with this intervention is that we identify a need, the need to train the milkers about the teeth sealing, how to identify a normal milk that really needs intervention because it's mastitis, and other types of abnormal milk. So we actually designed a poster training that is available to train dairy workers or milkers. We have a newsletter and a poster on this topic. So the silver bullet point here is that the community of practice are excellent to understand the industry, educational, and outreach needs. So the next issue that we deal is the communication between the milkers and the herd manager. So the intervention that we implement is that we ask the milkers to describe the work that they perform at their facility, at each position, and the challenges that they face, and who in the team did it the best and why. So we let them explain to us position number 1, 2, 3, 4 in the rotary milking parlor. Each of the positions, the workers were in that position for 1 hour, and then they changed. And this is commonly done in rotary milking parlors, that they often change position, and it's because the milkers have a very specific movement of arms and wrists. So they want to have a break from that repetitive movement, and they change positions every 1 hour. So the milkers indicated to the herd manager that the position number 3 was the most difficult, and it was a burden just for the person in that position, and also for the people that they were next to the position number 2, because had to pick up a little bit of the work that number 3 could not do, because the rotary keeps moving, and if they don't keep up with the work, then they need to stop or bring more people just to keep up the pace. So they also indicated that position number 4 was the preferred position. And interestingly, another thing that we learned when we asked this, is that they indicated that when they were attaching units, they prefer not to have the units aligned by positions before that, because they want to change the movement. So if a position number 2 will place the units all in the same position, when the person that attached the units had to pick up the units, he will do that always in the same type of repetitive motion. So they would prefer if they had to do something a little bit different from the repetitive motion. So that was interesting, because that was something that everybody thought that it would help the workers to move faster, just to have the units aligned, but they would prefer not to have that. And when we discussed this information with the manager, it was interesting, because they were that was new for them, that the number 3 was the position that they found the most difficult. And they redesigned the organization, the work organization, and how they have the workers doing their job after this feedback. And I didn't mention before, but the position number 1 in the rotary parlor will be the one that is pre-dipping and stripping and detecting mastitis. In the number 2, there will be the towel cleaning, drying teats, and aligning the milking units. The number 3 will be attaching the units. And the number 4 will be post-dipping. That post-dipping is the position where everybody gets a rest. So our hypothesis that by communicating between the milkers and the herd manager, we will understand better the challenge associated with these, with the different positions, and maybe they can modify and improve the workflow. And yes, indeed, that happened, because her manager took into consideration the feedback from the workers and changed the work organization, and they modified the positions description for each of the milkers. So there was another issue, that it was the communication between the milkers and the shift leader. The shift leader was a position that supervised the shift, was making this person was making sure that they had all the tools that they need. If something break, that he was available to try to fix that. If somebody was behind in his work, he could step in and help that person. If there was some issues with units that they need to be reattached, they could do that. So this position was basically supervising, moving, but he didn't have a fixed position within the rotary milking parlor. So anytime that a milker needed a break, a bathroom break, they could reach out for him, and they could get a break. But one of the issues that the milkers indicated is that the milk ship manager leader was not available many times when they needed, because he might be getting the towels out of the laundry or doing other things, and he was not available to pick up on the work that it needed to be done at the moment. So they felt that he was not available to pick up on the work when they were behind, or just to take the bathroom breaks. So we hypothesized that improving the communication between the milkers and the milk shift leader could be improved. One of our intervention then was working with in the cooperative, in the community of practice, the herd manager actually listening to the milkers' concern. And as a result, the herd manager took the initiative to purchase a wireless doorbell button device used for senior people, and that allow workers to contact the shift leader directly. And the milkers and the shift leader were pleased with the solution, especially because they saw that the herd manager had an interest in solving their problems. And the workers also, the milkers, were really happy to have a solution for a problem that it was a daily issue. The key takeaway: finding a solution to problems can rely on creativity and does not need to be expensive. The next item is how we can help reduce the incidence of mastitis through cleaning. And this was cleaning the teeth. This was one of the issues. So the facility teeth cleaning, and they consider that the improving cleanliness at the milking parlor could help reduce mastitis. So the owner was invested in improving teeth cleaning and try different approaches. And so the hypothesis that we had is that adherence to teeth cleaning protocols will be improved if the managers and the milkers share feedback on the teeth cleaning strategies that they are implemented in the facilities. So our intervention is that in 2 months into the community of practice, the milkers were asked by the hair manager to use a new device to clean teeth. This is the brush that is pictured. And we ask the milkers to provide feedback to the hair manager about how the brush was working. So the milker shares the perception. They indicated that the brush felt too rough for the sensitive teeth skin, and they perceived that the cows were agitated when they were exposed to the brush. And they also complain about the ergonomics of using this device. They show some callus on their hands. They also indicate that it was really heavy and difficult to handle on the wrists. As a result the community of this community of practice communication, the workers expressed clearly their concerns about the brush. The hair manager really took it he tried to find a solution for this issue to mitigate the weight-bearing demands that this device had on the milkers. So he started looking online for things like camera straps that the workers, milkers could use, but he didn't find a good solution for the problem that was presented. So at the end, the milkers kept using the brushes like it was, but the owner, 2 or 3 months after implementing this procedure, this new procedure of cleaning the teeth, decided to change that and come back to the regular teeth cleaning procedure that they were using at the beginning of the community of practice. The other thing that we addressed during the community of practice is that the heifers and cows agitation when they were entering the rotary milking parlor. So the issue here is that the cows were hesitant to enter the rotary and do a pothole that you can see here in the picture. And the milkers had to push some cows forcefully to get them inside the rotary. This stressed the animals and increased the risk of the milkers getting kicked. So we hypothesized that if we reduce the agitation among the cattle when they enter the milking parlor, it might facilitate milking, and the proper milking will decrease mastitis and susceptibility to reduce antibiotic use. So the intervention was to discuss between milkers and the herd management how to solve this issue. The management required all the milkers to attend handling training where they were refreshed on how to handle cows calmly. So the pothole was there, the animals refused to enter, but at least to try to push the animals in a gentle way. After that, no objects were used to persuade the cows to enter the milking parlor. Before, it was an issue if they were using a physical force to push the animals into the rotary milking parlor. Unfortunately, the pothole was difficult to fix because it will require to stop milking, and that was not a possibility. So it was a complaint that from the very beginning and lasted to the end, it was not fixed. So in conclusion, the community of practice was an excellent strategy to help to understand the opportunities within the milking section of the dairy operation. The herd manager was invited to join the community of practice after the second meeting, and he was very eager to join, and the milkers actually appreciate his presence at the meetings. Although some challenges persisted, good communication between the herd managers and milkers was evident throughout, and we perceive an improvement on the communication between the milkers and the herd manager. The dairy owner and the herd manager introducing multiple changes during the community of practice. The milkers organization changed, the positions were adjusted based on the feedback received during the community of practice. The cows were stripped less frequently to reduce labor. Also, this was not a result necessarily of the community of practice, but just try to find economic alternatives for the labor of milking. Then the new teeth cleaning strategies that they were tested, ultimately both were abandoned by management. They used a large brush And however, the brush was heavy during the use and caused fatigue in the shoulders and the fingers of the milkers. And the brush also was aggressive in the teeth skin of the cows. Another thing that during the community of practice happened is that the owner introduced a robotic teeth sealer to reduce intramammary infection. This device was located in position number 4. That, as I mentioned before, this was the position that it was the resting position. And it was something that the workers did not complain about, but we are not sure if they were extremely happy to get removed that position that was the resting position. But the technology did not work because it required maintenance, it was breaking down, and it was not reliable. So although we saw a lot of changes during the community of practices, and many of the changes that they were introduced came back to the same as they were initially. So one of the key messages here is that in dairy farms, there are a lot of changes that are introduced in protocols, in new technologies, and a lot of those things could have changed the milk quality of the farm, and they were maybe beyond the impact of the community of practice. The impact of the community practice should be evaluated based on the long-term ability to sustain communication between the owner and the herd manager with the milkers and sheep leader. We perceive tensions between the milkers and the managers, especially the hospital manager. The community of practice asked milkers about possible change to improve their work environment. The main requests were to fix the pothole at the entrance of the milking parlor and to fix 2 milking units that had problems with retraction, and they were not fixed. The milkers actually got a little bit frustrated because these issues were brought up in several of the community of practices where the herd manager was present, and they were discussed, but they were never resolved. Farm ownership withdrew their participation on communication prior to the end of the project. One of the things that we perceive is that the milkers were given the opportunity to express the issues that they found on their positions, on their job, or on the daily tasks, and very few of those issues were addressed to the level that they wanted. The farm ownership will not address those, like the pothole, but I think that frustrated both the farm ownership, just listening about the same problems, and the milkers also complaining about the same things. So one of the other interesting things that happened on the farm is that the herd manager quit his job at the dairy within 6 to 12 months after the project completion. We don't really know the reasons behind this job movement, but he was actually good at establishing communications with the milkers and the ownership and leadership of the farm. It's uncertain also if this communication remained with the new herd manager. Only one of the milking crew participated in the community of practice, and as I mentioned before, the sheep leader of the second community sheep milkers shift expressed a lack of desire to participate. Just because of this shift leader expressed his desire not to participate, we believe that influenced the milkers that they were under his supervision. So one of the recommendations could be building trust to engage in community of practice because it might require more than a single orientation with dairy workers. We had occasional meetings with the sheep leader that did not want to participate, and he was very interested and talkative and had an interest to learn about how things were going. And he might be interested in participating if we offer him a second opportunity. So understanding the needs of the milkers is critical. However, it can bring conflict unless the herd manager or owner clearly explains their appreciation for their suggestions and addresses why they can or cannot take action on their suggestions. And the herd manager was the interface between the owner and milkers, but the community of practice we felt that did not provide the herd manager tools to better communicate with the owner. So the acknowledgements for this funding was provided by the Antimicrobial Use and Stewardship branch of the California Department of Food and Agriculture. We want to thank especially the milkers, the managers, and the operation that allow us to do this study. And we thank them for sharing all the facilities, personnel, and their time. So here you have the contact information of the project leader, Dr. Rosie Bush. Any other questions, feel free to address to her. Thank you. I hope you find this presentation interesting.